Welcome back, everyone. Before we move on and close the topic of ternary, we would like to demonstrate how powerful the ternary operator can be. To do so, let's create a new class, and we're going to call it nested ternary demo. And from our if statement, nesting, you remember what nesting is, right? Okay, so we will actually do this. We will take a shortcut. We will copy the code from within our previous class, ternary demo. We'll copy the last two methods that we developed and our main method. We'll paste it here. Now we will change the wording. And this is complaining because is undefined. Okay, else if branching. Within main method, if you remember last time, we just called our first two methods, not the last two developed methods. So our test values will remain the same, because this time we're going to check for whether number that the user is going to pass as an argument is going to be equal to 0. We're going to add one more branch to this if statement. So let's start from there. So this is not a complete condition, right? We kind of cheated around. We asked whether the number is greater than or equal to 0, and then we said greater than or equal to. Now we want to actually have our message to be more precise. We want to have our message check for a condition where it is greater than 0, check for a condition where it is equal to 0, and in that case, we want our message to be equal to 0. And here we just want to say greater than 0. That's it. So this is the if-else branching that we wanna rewrite in a nested ternary. Go over it one more time. We have a method called if_demo. It's gonna accept a parameter of an int type, of an integer type. It's gonna, based on the parameter that the user, based on the value that the user passes as an argument, we're gonna have a message that we're gonna print. And this message's value, or this message's body, is going to be equal to greater than 0 when the number is greater than 0. Is going to be equal to 0 when the number is actually equal to 0. Otherwise, in all the other cases, it's gonna print out less than 0. So you can code this as a positive. This number is positive, this number is 0, this number is negative. Going back to our early examples. This is what our if demo does. You want to test it. Let's do it. If demo, pass in number 3, run it. Greater than 0, number 0, run it. Equal to 0, and number 5. I'm sorry, negative 5. Run it. Less than 0. Perfect. Now we want to do this in a ternary. How do we do it? Okay. The answer is simple. So remember how we asked the question, is the number greater than or equal to 0? Question mark. In this case, we're going to ask the question, is the number greater than 0? If it is, we're going to just say greater than 0, right? Our message is going to take this value. If it is not greater than 0, we have two more options remaining. If it is not greater than 0, we're going to add condition here. Instead of adding a message, we're going to add condition here. We're going to say, is number equal to 0? Because if the number is not greater than 0, we are not going to assign this value to the message. We're going to assign anything that comes after this column here, right? So let's actually put this here to make it easy to understand. So we have a simple ternary. Is the number greater than 0? Question is asked. If the number is greater than 0, we're going to say greater than 0. If the number is not greater than 0, we're going to do whatever is inside these parentheses. Let me just delete this everything. Okay, you see how we're giving two options? That's it. We're still keeping it. Now, in the second option, though, we're going to have another ternary. So if the number is not greater than 0, is the number less than 0? Question mark. If the answer is yes, we're going to say less than 0. If the answer is no, obviously the number is not greater than 0, it's not less than 0, then it is 0. The number, it is 0 or equal to 0. Did you see how this happened? So we have a ternary that has condition value 1 and value 2. The value 2 of this ternary has a condition inside that also has value 1 and value 2. This is called nested ternary. We took one ternary, nested it inside another ternary. You want to see it from a different perspective? Nest this example on your own. So let me copy it. I'm going to comment out this message so our compiler ignores it. That was the initial code that we developed. Usually, we should code like this. We should say, this is how I want you to develop your code in the beginning. Message is equal to our ternary is number greater than 0? Question mark. Add a ternary next. If it is greater than 0, then print out greater than 0. Else, check for this condition. Is the number less than 0? Another question mark, but it is nested. You see how we nested? If it is less than 0, print it out. Otherwise, assign it less than 0. Otherwise, assign it equal to. So delete these parentheses. Now we don't need them. Now, this nesting, does it resemble this nesting? Or actually, like, do you see how we have one question mark and after question mark, the first option? We have else here or else if here. After that, we have first option. We kind of reversed it, and we have a second option. So this whole thing is equal to this kind of a nesting. Let me show you else if nesting. So we had a case if number is greater than 0. We said message is equal to greater than 0. Else, you remember this nesting when we nested else? We nested other conditions inside the else. Ternary does the same. If number is less than 0, message is equal to less than 0. Otherwise, message is equal to 0. You see how this ternary here resembles this nested if? That is what it is. Usually, you will write it like this. If you're gonna get questions on ternaries, usually those questions will not have any of these parentheses because those questions are going to be meant to trick you, are going to be meant to look difficult. Anytime you get a question like this on ternaries, break them down. Understand, read them. Number is greater than 0, question mark. Yes, okay, greater than 0. No, okay. What are the options we have? Look at this here. Number is less than 0. Yes, less than 0. No, we have another option. We might actually have tons of options. I'm going to go as far as saying that, do you see this switch statement? You can write this switch statement with a ternary. You're going to nest them on and on and on and on. Okay? Usually, it is not a common practice. It is not a good practice. Usually, we will use ternary, as we did before, for simple if-else conditions like this. Or sometimes we will go ahead and create conditions like this within a print line, right? Or within, for example, let me show you one simple example. You remember how we let me create another method here that will be easier, and we forgot our semicolon, that's why it's complaining. So public static void sample best practices. We don't need any. Actually, let's keep a number here, int number. So best practices for ternary are going to be something like this: string message number equal to 1 question, 1 column, -1. Things like this. If a number is 1, we're going to say 1. If the number is not 1, we're going to say -1 for some reason. So certain, and I will ask you guys to always code in such a way that will be easy to read. Certain cases like this, because if you want to assign a message to this string here, either you have to create your if-else branching, or you can create your simple ternary. You remember this resembles. Do you remember this Boolean? For example, is 1. You remember this? We said this is a flag, and we can say number 1 because this here returns true or false. The same here. Boolean can take true or false. So this is a flag. This flag will take true or false, right? However, message cannot take true or false. If you want a message to take true or false, you're going to say true within quotation marks and false within quotation marks. In this case, when you want to assign a value to a variable other than a Boolean, when you have a condition, you cannot just leave it as a condition. Let's do it and see if it works. If it will not work because your message will be like type mismatch, cannot convert from Boolean to string because this is a Boolean and we want a string. So these are the most common cases where we will look into ternary statements. When you want to not return a Boolean, but return something else, that's where you're going to use ternary. You can use ternary for anything, any if condition, and I mean any if condition. However, not recommended because it might get a hassle to read ternary. Okay, I've seen some developers just write ternary like this: question mark and columns, question mark and columns. So this is all they have like 10 if conditions or a switch statement. They do it in a ternary. Not necessary, not common, not encouraged. So since we said in the switch, when we looked at the switch statements, we said that a lot of developers claim since you know how to use if else, there is no need for a switch. The same claim applies for a ternary. However, both switch and ternary are meant to make our lives easy. If your switch statement is gonna be clustered or is not gonna help you out, or it's not gonna serve the purpose of making your life easy, do not use it. The same applies to ternary. Do not use it just to show that you know it. Use it when cases allow you to. Simple cases like these. Maximum 1 nested ternary. Do not go ahead and do multiple nested ternaries. That's not a good coding practice. So having said all this, I will leave it up to you to test our ternary demo. And when you do so, let me actually comment out this if part, because we are testing for the ternary. We're testing for this command to work. We're not testing for this command. So test it, pass it your values, pass it any other value, see if you can break it. I don't see how, but you never know. It's testing, right? And I want to thank you for your time. This will for now be a completion of our conditionals. We'll make sure you understand how to create conditional statements, how to manage conditional statements, because from this moment on, almost anything and everything we do will have some kind of a conditional checks in them, because conditional statements are there to control the flow of your program without you looking into the program, without you seeing every single variable. This statement, this method here is going to work on its own. You do not need to command anything. It's gonna create a variable called message and print it out, right? Depending on what not only you but anyone out there passes in. Because when someone goes to a website and when they pass in a number, you don't know what that number is gonna be. There is no way you can control that person's decision. That's why we have conditional statements that control, based on the person's decision, control the way your program runs. If you have gray areas, do ask your questions. Do watch these videos one more time. Read about them in our support materials and communicate. Thank you very much for your time. I will see you in our next topic.